Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's conversation with three outstanding chambers of commerce and two of North Carolina's leading General Assembly members who hands down just get it. They're leading our state to encourage smart economic initiatives and policy to attract the economic investment and job creation that clean energy brings. I'm Susan Monroe, and I'm Director of Economic Development with Chambers for Innovation and Clean Energy. I work with and support chambers of commerce and economic development leaders in North Carolina to navigate the opportunities for clean energy development in their communities. And there's a lot of exciting opportunities to navigate right now. So let's set the stage for today's discussion on creating a stronger, cleaner economy. Here's a quick snapshot of where our state is with clean energy. Clean energy accounts for over $28 billion in economic impact in North Carolina. And at the close of 2019, a workforce of 113,000. This is according to an E2 Clean Jobs North Carolina report. Those jobs primarily were in solar, wind, energy efficiency, grid modernization, energy storage, and clean vehicles. North Carolina has more than 7,300 megawatts in installed renewable energy capacity. Sound impressive? Well, this only accounts for about 10.4% of our state's electricity generation mix. And today, with wind and solar now cost competitive and often cheaper than other energy generation resources, the job and economic impact numbers that I just reviewed simply means there's never been a more critical time for our state to support what could be our top opportunity for economic growth. Every county in North Carolina is home to clean energy. Over 25% of the state's clean energy workers were based in rural areas, by far the most in the country. So a deeper look at this impact, 87% of utility solar project investments were made in Tier 1 and Tier 2 counties. As these communities are working every day to rebuild our local economy during this time of overall economic uncertainty, these solar projects, plus the potential of offshore wind and more onshore wind development, these are the opportunities that will help us build a stronger and more resilient economy for decades to come. With the right policies and support in place, North Carolina can lead the Southeast and perhaps the country in clean energy development. Combine that with the potential to rebuild our state's utility business model to be more competitive and market-driven. Our economic future is looking bright. As we continue this discussion, please make sure to register for our next panel this Monday, December 14th at 11 a.m., featuring 3 additional chambers of commerce and 3 other leading legislators. Simply go to chambersforinnovation.com and go to our event page. Today, we encourage you to ask questions using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we hope to have time to address some of these questions following Senator Soka's remarks. So let's get started. I am thrilled to introduce a colleague of mine, Holly Staples, President and CEO of the Elizabeth City Area Chamber of Commerce. Elizabeth, get this started for us. I'm sorry, Holly.
Oh, no problem. All right, can you see me in it now? All right, thank you, Susan, and good morning, everyone. I am Holly Staples. As Susan mentioned, I am the President and CEO of the Elizabeth City Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm so happy to be a co-host of today's panel discussion on clean energy. I want to say welcome and thank you to everyone joining us today, and a very special thank you to Senator Steinberg and Representative Soka for taking time out of your schedules to take part in this event. Thank you both very, very much. The Elizabeth City area is pleased to be home to the Avangrid Renewables wind farm, a 203 megawatt project which just celebrated its 3rd anniversary. This project has had a significant economic impact on our region. A few examples. The 18-month construction phase put more than 30 North Carolina-based companies to work. employed more than 500 workers, and resulted in more than $18 million spent locally by Avangrid Renewables. At this time, the project employs 17 highly trained, highly paid full-time employees, and the total of tax revenues and payments to the 60 landowners inject more than $1.1 million into the local economy each year in Pasquotank and Perquimans counties. So we understand and appreciate the economic benefits that clean energy has delivered to our region, and we look forward to what's to come. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Karen Brown, the President and CEO of the Outer Banks Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, everybody. Greetings from the beach. We're happy to be here today. Again, I also like to thank Senator Steinberg and Representative Soka for being part of this program today. The Outer Banks Chamber of Commerce has a long history of supporting policies and legislations that protect our fragile environment. The Chamber continues to support the research, feasibility, and development of clean energy products and alternatives, including solar and wind. As the Outer Banks Chamber strives to encourage economic resiliency, offshore wind is perhaps one of the greatest opportunities for our coastal community. Offshore wind also ensures the protection of our beautiful and fragile environment. Clean energy continues to be part of the Outer Banks Chamber of Commerce annual legislative agenda, which includes those items of greatest importance to our organization. And now it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce our North Carolina Senator, Bob Steinberg, as today's first speaker. Senator Steinberg is a strong supporter of our coastal area and has attended and participated in a number of events over the years, including our 2020 Economic Summit that focused on clean energy. Senator Steinberg was recently elected to a second term in the North Carolina Senate after serving 3 terms in the State House. Representing coastal North Carolina, he continues to fight for clean energy investment and market competition in Senate District 1. I am pleased to welcome North Carolina clean energy champion, Senator Steinberg, to today's discussion. Senator, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Karen, very much. Glad to be here. And it looks like everything is working. My face is appearing on the screen. I think everyone is able to hear my voice. I certainly hope so. But it's wonderful to be able to participate with you today. You know, it's amazing going back. You were talking about those years that I have been in the legislature, and I'm going back now to when John Soka and I were first elected in 2012, coming into that session in 2013. And it always seemed as though the conversation about renewable energy was always fraught with challenges from so many people who really failed to do their homework and study the issue. They just were getting bullet points from think tanks here and there that were just anti-renewable energy, and they would have been anti-renewable energy no matter what. But things have changed. Things are continuing to change. People are now, I think, much better educated, not only legislators, but also the general public. There's a number of groups out there, including Conservatives for Clean Energy, that are showing the folks through polling and so forth that this is actually a very, very popular issue with all sections, including conservatives. Conservatives, I think 65, maybe 70% now are in favor of renewable energy. So that in and of itself has changed the conversation a little bit in the General Assembly. Folks now seem to be more willing to listen, and those of us who are advocates, we have more tools at our disposal to try and rebut some of the many false claims that have been out there over the years about renewable energy. So, rural Carolina, rural Eastern North Carolina, rural Northeastern North Carolina, coastal Carolina, these areas are certainly, I think, ideal settings for renewable energy enterprises, both solar and wind. We have had, and I'm sure perhaps, I say I'm sure, I can't say I'm sure perhaps Representative Soka can allude to some of the interesting skirmishes, if you will, we've had with the military and trying to get the military on board. The military and those who support the military, which is all of us, have, they've resisted the advance of renewable energy in some of these areas surrounding our military bases, and that has really been challenging to try and overcome that and get everybody on board. We're a big agricultural area over here in the Northeast. We have a lot of land over here for wind and solar, prime for both. We have local governments here who have seen their revenue pictures fade over the last few years as the urban areas continue to grow and rural areas are either stagnant or declining in population. So these counties and municipalities that have to maintain the functions of government are constantly looking for additional sources of revenue that do not include raising taxes. And of course, renewable energy is one source for them to be able to do that. So many folks now are willing to have the conversation. I have seen in my own experience a lot of naysayers who are now proponents of, or at the very least willing to listen to the argument for renewable energy in their respective locales. So as was said earlier, I believe the future is very bright for renewable energy, and there is a willingness here, at least among the 11 counties that I represent in northeastern North Carolina, to embark upon these endeavors. We have a wind farm that is in the works right now. I think it's Timber Mill, if I'm not mistaken, here in Chowan County. And there have been some people in Chowan right from the very beginning who have been opposed to it and any renewable energy. But the numbers that we're looking now from the participation numbers and what the revenue would be that would be gained from siting this facility are staggering. And so you've got people who want to build new schools, and we have other various infrastructure needs. You can't just neglect an additional $850,000 to $1 million a year in revenue just because you may not like the optics of it. You don't like the way they look. You don't like the way that you think they sound, and so on and so forth. I want to share this one quick story with you. I remember when the wind farm was being proposed, and then indeed going up the Amazon wind facility and Pasquotank and Perquimans, and oh my golly, the resistance was real. It was a battle every single day. I can remember talking to people who were just so anti, you couldn't believe, didn't want to look at them, didn't want to hear them. But I have since visited many of these folks since that facility has been open and operating. And these same folks who were so resistant, when I posed the question to them, what do you think about the wind farm? Has this troubled you in any way? And they say, no, really, it's not nearly what we had expected in terms of having a negative impact on our daily lives and even the aesthetics of the area. So I think that's encouraging, and I think continuing to get this information out there, continuing to educate the general public, to give legislators like Representative Soka and myself the tools that we need to be able to articulate with our brothers and sisters in the legislature the great outcome for our state in embracing renewable energy moving forward. Thank you.
Senator, thank you so much. And I want to be really respectful of your time. I know that you might have to leave us in a few minutes, but I wanted really to follow up. We had a question come in, and based on what you said, you probably would have you'd probably like to address this. In in the era or this phase that we're in now with COVID-19, other factors that are leading to economic uncertainty, what do you see as the major benefits of renewable energy, clean energy development for our state?
Well, where do you want me to start and where do you want me to end? I think the opportunities are endless. I mean, if we're talking about jobs creation, you know, we're at a moment right now, I think, where we're going to be facing real paradigm shifts moving forward. Economic paradigm shifts. I think we're seeing paradigm shifts in the way that we go about. Well, look at this meeting as an example. The way we go about getting together and so on and so forth. Education. I think there's a tremendous paradigm shift going on in education as well. And people are looking at this and they're saying, you know, we have found through COVID, all the negatives of COVID and so forth, we have found that there are other ways through technology that we can accomplish what we have accomplished before. I'm not saying this is what I agree with, but I'm saying these are the conversations that are being had. And, you know, you've got folks that are thinking, God, instead of $40 or $50 million for a new school, I think we can, you know, there are other ways to educate these kids without committing those kinds of dollars to a physical plant. And so this is really many times in what we see, what happens to all of us over the years and has happened over the centuries, which are initially viewed as problematic, end up being growing experiences where we learn because we have to adapt. We just have to adapt or we die. So we do adapt. And when you adapt, you often find that there are better ways, or at least equally as efficient ways of doing things differently and accomplishing the same result. I'll give you one example. My future daughter-in-law works for a big insurance, national insurance firm out of New York, and she's headquartered in Virginia Beach, Norfolk area, Tidewater. And they have a huge office park there, huge office park that they are paying dearly for, the space that they're renting. But nobody goes in anymore because they can't, because of COVID. Yet, since March of last year, when they were all sent home, their business is not only holding, their business is increasing. So they find that they are becoming even more efficient, because when they are sitting down and doing what needs to be done, they are right there in front of their screen with no distractions, doing what needs to be done. Now, am I suggesting that we should no longer be sending kids to school and have them learn in the classroom and participate in all of those kinds of activities, which I think are wonderful? No, I'm not suggesting that. But what I am suggesting is this: there are going to be people that make decisions about significant expenditures that are going to be taking a look at ways moving forward. Of course, we have budgetary constraints. The state has budgetary constraints. This COVID crisis has hurt our revenue picture, the federal government as well. You can't just continually spend money. So we're going to have to try and do what gives us the most bang for the buck. So COVID, in spite of its, destruction and devastation, has, I think, opened the door and opened our eyes to new ways of communicating with one another and in doing business and educating our people and so on and so forth. You're still going to need the folks out there that are going to have to build these facilities and so forth. We still need workers. We need folks who come into our homes, plumbers, electricians, and so on and so forth. But we are, again, we are in the midst, in my view, of a very, very significant paradigm shift that is going to impact each and every one of us in ways that we haven't even begun to discuss or realize.
Yeah, I think you bring up some great points about the opportunity. And one of the opportunities for renewable energy development, clean energy development, is that when they come into the communities as typically we may offer other incentives or have to spend millions of dollars in infrastructure improvements with water or roads or free land for jobs or whatever incentives that we offer businesses to relocate in our communities. We don't have to do that with clean energy
Right.
development.
Right.
There's no infrastructure monies required. So it's in terms of economic development, it's often ideal because of that.
Well, and it's allowing many people to keep the land that they might otherwise, through death or other financial considerations, have been forced to give up. Land that was previously used as farmland and so on and so forth, the wide open spaces, so to speak. People have been forced into selling that land, which also ends up many times becoming housing, and that's not a bad thing, but housing also will require all of those things that you're talking about. There'll be educational needs that have to be met. There's sewer and all of that, electricity, all sorts of costs. So many of these folks are able now to give up a portion of their land, if you will, for renewable energy. And then they are able to realize an income which allows them to continue to pay the taxes and to keep that property in their family for years to come. So it is, no matter how you look at it, to me, it's a win-win situation or a win-win situation.
Hey, thank you so much for your comments. And you don't know it, but you actually just provided our transition to,
wonderful.
to our next feature today. So we are really happy to show a video that we have worked on. It captures perfectly, Senator, some of the points that you just raised. And so we're stay tuned and take a look at this video on the impact of solar development in our state.
We grow, cotton for the most part, some soybeans. My name is Ken Gaganis. My family and I operate a small row crop farm in Martin County. In April of 2013, my wife and I received a letter in the mail from Ecoplexus. I gave its due diligence and threw it in the trash. The next day, I was at my kitchen sink, washing dishes, and that letter was laying on top of the trash pile. And I said, well, what will it hurt, for us to, inquire about, this offer? And as they say, the rest is history. This was totally, new for us. They offered, financial stability that we were not able to provide for ourselves, in the row crop, farming sector. We still want to provide college education opportunities for our children. But without having a pension plan or a retirement opportunity, the solar industry figured into the decision to make solar a part of our family. That's only just a small portion of what blessing solar has provided, a career, for my two boys. Our two sons formed their own LLC, providing solar maintenance. The finished product and the end result has been a great blessing for our family.
The solar farms produce a much higher income per acre than rural agricultural land. I'm Larry Strickland. I'm a North Carolina state legislator. I'm a fourth generation owner of a family farm. In Johnston County, we have 22 solar farms that bring in income of roughly $425,000. And that same acreage in the past brought in roughly $25,000. And that within itself is a 1,900% increase. We're always looking for additional revenue to build schools, to help pay teacher salaries, police.
I certainly understand and appreciate solar energy and economic growth and job creation that is created here in Johnston County.
I hear the pros and cons daily about solar versus farmland. Once you start building subdivisions on farming land, it never returns back. a solar farm, you'll have the option of dismantling that solar farm and its panels and returning it to a farm use to pass it on to your heirs, your next generation.
Hey, and you will be able to hear more from Representative Larry Strickland, who appeared on this video this Monday at our next panel series at 11 o'clock this Monday, December 14th. And you can go to chambersforinnovation.com and go to our event page and find the registration information for that. So next, we are so excited to welcome Tanisha Kerr from the Greater Fayetteville Chamber. Thank you for being with us today. And Tanisha, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It's my pleasure. I am Tanisha Kerr. I'm the interim president and CEO for Greater Fayetteville. For Greater Fayetteville Chamber. And we have our Military Affairs Council through which we work very closely with Fort Bragg. And so you may have heard the announcement in September that Fort Bragg will start construction on a floating solar power project. The U.S. Army's Fort Bragg here in North Carolina will soon be home to the largest floating solar plant in the Southeast. It is going to be a 1.1 megawatt system as part of the utility energy service contract awarded to Duke Energy. This project is going to take a comprehensive look at the way energy is being used at Fort Bragg and will lead to more efficient energy use and significant cost savings. The $36 million contract will focus on energy resilience and security at Fort Bragg. And this includes such things as infrastructure modernization, including lighting and water upgrades, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, and boiler system improvements. At the Greater Fayetteville Chamber, we understand the critical role that the military plays in our local state economy. And our next speaker certainly does as well. I am proud to introduce a 20-year Army veteran, Representative John Soka. He is a longtime clean energy champion, and he is going on in his 7th year in the House. His 7th term in the North Carolina House of Representatives. He serves as chairman of the Energy and Public Utilities Committee, and he also chairs several other legislative committees. He represents Cumberland County, and he also owns a mortgage lending business. So I would now like to hand over to our next speaker, Representative Soka.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. What I'd like to do today is to take a couple minutes to talk basically about 3 things. Because being the chamber, what chambers are interested in is attracting new businesses and building the businesses that you all have. So hopefully my comments will focus on that and help us all think about how we do that a little bit better in our own communities. So first of all, why am I a clean energy champion and why do I like it? Well, first of all, it's cost effective. If you go back 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't the most cost effective energy producer, but it certainly is today. When you come up against arguments from people who say, well, solar wouldn't exist except for tax credits and all these things, what they're really trotting out are arguments that are 10 to 15 years old. 10 years ago, probably true. But the industry has progressed well beyond that, and has progressed well beyond that for 2 major reasons. One is consumer demand. The people demand cleaner energy. They just do for multiple of reasons. Some want to stop global warming, whether you believe it or not. Some want to save the polar bears. Some people just feel that it's a responsible thing to do. I don't really care what their motivation is, but as business people, And as politicians, we have to be aware of what consumer demand really is and take note of it. Bob mentioned the Conservatives for Clean Energy. In most of their polling that they've done over the last several years that I've seen, clean energy is supported by over 72% of the population, no matter white, black, Republican, Democrat, old, young, whatever demographic you want to come up with, there's no demographic that is less than 52%. So you have to listen to that. And third, we have to listen to markets. When you have something that's cost effective and people want it, the markets themselves should be driving towards more clean energy. And in fact, I think we see this both in the growth of solar and other renewables such as wind in our own state and across the nation. So that's the first point. That's why I'm a fan. And I think you need to keep the cost effectiveness of it front and center when you're looking at things. I'd like to turn off of that for just a minute and talk about the military. This floating solar array, very exciting because it's different. It wasn't that long ago when I was ribbon cutting for a 79 megawatt solar farm in my district that was the largest east of the Mississippi. It was different, got good play in the press. And now if you open a 79 megawatt solar farm, you'll probably get local press, but not statewide press because I'm not going to say it's small, but there are certainly bigger ones been made since that time. With the military, that's actually what got me interested in this because back in 2003 or 4, I believe, then President Bush put a mandate on the military, which to the best of my knowledge has never been rescinded by Department of Defense, that required all military installations to generate at least 25% of their on-post non-mission essential energy by renewables. Fort Bragg's been a little bit slow to fully get there, and they're still not there, but with projects like this, they're getting closer to that. Part of that's a function of the state law, because federal installations, even though theoretically they can do anything they want to on the federal installation, they still follow state law in regards to purchase power agreements and third-party sales and all that. And as everyone on the call is probably aware, currently third-party sales is not allowed by statute in the state of North Carolina. So Camp Lejeune, Fort Bragg, Cherry Point, some of the other installations have been slower in adopting newer clean energy technologies because of state laws. We've changed some of that. And if you go back to House Bill 589, we had to set aside in the Green Source Advantage portion of the bill. Hasn't been utilized completely, but that's why we're going back in this session. Maybe we can fix that up a little bit. The third thing I'd like to talk about is there was a question that was asked of me, and the question, Reggie Ponder said, what's the prospect for long-term jobs versus short-term construction/development jobs in renewable energy? And I think that's really a great question because as chambers of commerce, that's what we want to do to increase jobs and increase the economies in our area. So I would take issue with one thing in that, however, and that's in the question said short-term, i.e. construction. Construction is an industry, and think of the home building industry, if you will. There's a lot of people involved in the construction industry that builds homes. They complete one, and it's not like they say, well, we're done. They move on to another subdivision or another commercial development or whatever. Now, there are ebbs and flows in the natural scheme of things in building things, but construction is not a short-term job. A job site may be short-term, but the construction industry itself is not short-term. When you apply that to solar farms in particular, that's what I'm most familiar with because we've got a major solar developer, right? He's not a developer, but he's a construction company right here in Cumberland County, and that's Horn Brothers Construction. When I first met them, they had two divisions. They had a cell tower division where they went around the country building cell towers. And because solar energy was kind of new, they got into construction of actually putting in the foundations to put the solar panels on. And I remember my first meeting with Horn Brothers. I was there in their conference room and they were showing me pictures of these machines that they were going to buy. It was a multi-million-dollar investment, each one of these machines. They're saying, we're going to buy these 5 machines, and it's costing a total like $7 million. And we're really going out on a limb, but we think we can make a go of this. Well, they initially bought those 5 machines with their own capital. They had 35 construction workers. And today, well, I visited their equipment park. I couldn't even count the number of machines they have. I believe it's around 75 or 80. And they have 600 employees involved in constructing solar farms, not just in North Carolina, but across the Southeast. They've done jobs as far north as Maine, as far south as Florida, as far west as the Mississippi River. And I didn't ask them this question. They might have gone further than that. I don't know. But locally, that's a huge success for us. So you've got entrepreneurs who look at something, are willing to stake their own money on things, and all of a sudden they're manyfold more successful than they were before. So construction, because solar field construction is not going away, wind turbine construction is not going away, I look at construction also as a long-term business. And the other thing is that when you look at longer term businesses, maybe is the supply chains on providing the components for either solar farms or wind turbines. 2 years ago, I went to Solar Power International Conference out in Las Vegas. It was fascinating. Walked around, went to this one booth. Turns out they're from North Carolina, where they had come up with a different way to, if you've never visited a solar farm, I'm not going to bore you with the technicalities, but basically a quicker, less expensive way to hook up each array of solar panels to the main electric lines, where instead of electricians splicing things, they had a thing where you slapped this cover down there. It had 2 prongs, you sealed it, and it was amazing. So once again, it's the entrepreneurial spirit of Americans that continue to find new, better, less expensive ways to do things. Those are the type of businesses that we need to continue to attract and continue to need to support here in North Carolina. Legislatively, I believe we've done a good job of that in reducing our corporate tax rates, which now stands at 2.5%, and also our individual tax rates, which is now 5.25%, which at a high was 7.5%. So if you've got a pass through as an S corp or an LLC, you're paying the individual, but still, we have very competitive tax rates. We've tried our best to reduce regulatory restrictions that stand in the way of allowing entrepreneurs to do what entrepreneurs do best, which is innovate and bring new things to market. When you get in the energy sector, there's always this issue of we have a regulated utility structure in this state. It's been that way for 100 years. I've said this multiple times that I think we need to be looking at a new regulatory structure that doesn't put the big energy producers out of business, but allows them to make more money and allows developers to be more competitive in markets and for them to make more money. I mean, what drives America, what has driven American independence for the last century is the access to inexpensive, compared to the rest of the world, energy. Renewable energy is just the next phase of this. We don't need to turn our backs on it. We need to encourage it and promote it. And in legislation that I put up or put forth in North Carolina legislature, I attempt to do that because I believe in American spirit. I believe in the American spirit of entrepreneurialism. I believe in our patriotism. And there's not a single energy company owner, be they a regulated utility or be they a wildcat oil driller or be they a solar developer, who doesn't exhibit that same spirit and wanting to do things better for their customers and cheaper, all motivated by the profit motive and also the sense to do good for their community. So having said that, I'm not going to go too long, but I'd be absolutely willing to take any questions if anybody has them.
Hey, Representative, thank you. So building on what you kind of concluded your remarks with, what do you see as the path forward to get to that utility model for North Carolina and whether or not we work with other states? What's the path forward?
Well, the path forward,
Easy question.
if there were a clear path forward, I would have written it up and you would already know about it. Like many things that are incredibly complex, and energy policy is one of those incredibly complex items. I think we'll move forward in fits and starts. I mean, if I had a magic wand or if I were the king of North Carolina, there were certain things I would do, but I'm one vote in a 120 member body, and there's also the Senate, and there's also the governor, and there's also all the stakeholders. So what we did in House Bill 589, which passed in 2017, I think was the way to approach moving forward in some of these major policy initiatives to get the stakeholders together. It doesn't always take a legislator to be involved in stakeholder talks. I always encourage the incumbent utilities and the co-ops and the munis to talk to solar developers in the industry in general and wind developers, because a lot of times it's not a zero-sum game. And I think sometimes people fall into it. It's like, if I win, you lose. If I make $1 million, you lose $1 million. It's not like that at all. In most things, if you can cooperate and come to a good solution, it's 1 + 1 = 5. Everybody wins. There's the opportunity to do that. So I think the path forward legislatively is I'd like to see the stakeholders make some progress and on those things if they can get together. And if not, I've been known in committee meetings to put on my retired colonel's hat and force some things, which I don't have any problem doing that either. But when it's all said and done, as a legislator, you have to know how to do 6th grade mathematics, because in 6th grade is where they teach you percent. So you have to have 50% + 1 in the House, 50% + 1 in the Senate, and then you actually have to have 100% at the executive level. So whether I have the best idea in the world, if I can't convince other people to do it, we're going to have issues, which is why the collaborative model is better than one side or the other trying to force their solution into a narrowly defined set of parameters and try and box somebody else out.
Sure. Hey, we might still have Senator Steinberg with us. So this goes to both of you. As we pursue that opportunity, that new model, who are the winners? Are ratepayers the winners? Are businesses the winners? What's the end game?
Well, let me take it first if I can, John, because I've got
Sure. I've
got a 12 noon luncheon I've got to be at here. And I was going to hop in anyway. I wanted to remind everyone, especially, folks who are interested in bringing businesses to North Carolina, that if you take a look at the Fortune 100 companies, if you take a look at the Fortune 100 companies in the United States and the self-imposed goals that they have as it relates to energy and where they want to be as soon as 2030, if not sooner, they want the lion's share of the energy that is going to be propelling their businesses to come from the renewable sector. So we as a state, if we are going to continue to, and we are, or we're going to continue to grow and draw businesses to our state, we have to recognize that some of the best of the best, and certainly the biggest, are expecting the states that they're considering for relocation to offer, or expansion, to offer renewable energy and not to have any impediments to renewable energy. That's one of the things I think that we need to hammer home over and over again. Representative Soka, he alluded to this earlier, the market determines what we should be doing. And in this particular case, if we look at the broadest market, which are those employers and entrepreneurs and Fortune 100 folks that are expanding their tentacles into other parts of the country, they are demanding renewable energy. And if we're not in a position as a state to offer it to them, or if we're doing everything we can to hurt renewable energy, then these businesses are not, I repeat, are not going to consider North Carolina. So I just wanted to get that in before I left. When Representative Soka was talking, it triggered that, and I didn't want to interrupt him. So, John, thanks for letting me jump in. I got to get to this luncheon thing. Thank you all for letting me participate. God bless you. And if I don't see any of you, I want you all to have a very Merry Christmas, and let's hope to God that 2021 is one hell of a lot better than what we've been through here in 2020. That's for sure. So God bless each and every one of you. And thanks a lot for letting me join in.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, so Representative Soka, we have a number of questions coming in. So I'm going to try to combine two questions in one. Actually, in the chat box, Josh Bass from Currituck Chamber of Commerce brings up a good point. If you remember from a couple weeks ago at our Clean Energy Champion event, Paul Shoemaker from Conservatives for Clean Energy had made a simple but quite brilliant statement. He said, renewable energy simply equals good politics.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, you and some of your other colleagues are leading the way with your base. How can you all help create and encourage other legislators to join you? And that could be at the local or state level.
And that's a great question. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was first elected and took office in 2013, I wasn't a fan of solar. I had read the conservative leaning journals and believed what they said, that it wouldn't exist without tax credits, and it was a waste of taxpayer money, and it was a flash in the pan, and we need to rely on coal and oil and gas and everything else. And then a lobbyist, and she's probably on here, and I won't embarrass her again by mentioning her name like I always do, but but she came to the office and said, she listened, she said, what do you think? And I told her, and she said, would you like some other information? And she said, sure. I went on this, it was interesting, I found it fascinating. She said, if you have any questions, call me. So I read it all, called her, she gave me some more information. I went on this kind of 6-month journey of energy because up until that time, the only thing I knew about energy and energy policy was when I flip the switch in my house, I want the lights to go on. And when a hurricane comes, I flip the switch and the lights don't come on because somebody's got to go out and repair it. Well, I've learned quite a bit since then, but it's an education process. And back in 2014, 15, there were probably 3 House members, myself being one of them, who actually saw the light, so to speak. Since that time, on recent controversial bills, there have been many more that have come around to the viewpoint that, hey, you know, solar is low cost. People do want it. So things like this, forums like this help get the word out. I think in chambers of commerce, what y'all could do is, you know, have meetings for your members and just talk about things. You know, like Paul Shoemaker's Conservative Clean Energy, the survey. If any of the chambers of commerce want me to come talk and about that, I'd be more than happy to do that. Either Zoom, I really like in person better, but I know we're living in COVID land, so we're all kind of Zoom right now. But I'd be happy to do that. It's a matter of educating policymakers and decision makers. Policymakers often are elected, decision makers are often not. Chambers of commerce have a great deal of influence in their communities. So we need to educate all the members, whether they own a print shop or whether they own a manufacturing facility in your community. It's another one of those things that the more people who truly understand the benefits of renewable energy, then when it comes time when politician A calls factory or whatever for for a campaign contribution or for just to chew the fat on what's going on, it's like, hey, what about this renewable energy thing? Why aren't you for it? Make them explain themselves. And then help educate them, because right now, the Conservatives for Clean Energy, that survey, 72% of everybody believes in it and want it. I don't think that's widely known. So what y'all can do is help get the word out. I'm willing to help any of your chambers or any other chambers across the state, either a Zoom or coming and talking about things in a forum kind of like this, where we can discuss the benefits of clean energy.
That's great. So this next question actually will be open to any of our panelists, chambers of commerce. This is about the short-term, and you touched on this, the short-term opportunities for job creation for renewable energy projects, as well as the long-term. I'd like to discuss that a little bit more and what that impact looks like at the local level. If any of our, I know of course I have a few things to say about that, but I certainly want to open it up to our chamber leaders who are on this call, if you would like to address that. I will, I'll definitely get us started and chime in, chamber leaders, if you'd like to add on. If we look at a renewable energy project, I'm just going to say an average renewable energy project, solar or wind, you're going to look at anywhere from 150 to more than 500 workers coming into a community over 18 months, 2 years to 3 years time. Many times they're going to be living in your community, contributing to your local economy, shopping at your shops, the hardware, the car dealerships, restaurants, the grocery stores. They're going to be contributing to your local tax revenue at that time. Just to put an estimate on it, you can look at anywhere from 25 to $30 million or more in that short term. Who wouldn't like that kind of economic boom in their community? Though it might be somewhat temporary, but you might actually, those folks that are working there also might fall in love with your community and want to move there on a permanent basis. So those short-term opportunities, like Representative Soka mentioned, you start a construction project and you end a construction project. It's the nature of that work. But it can contribute so much to the local economy, and especially now in looking long-term, wind does employ more permanent workers, but nevertheless, those workers that are permanently employed, they are highly trained, I think, as Holly reviewed, and they're highly paid, and they're bringing in their spouses, and they're moving into your communities and contributing to your local economy. The real magic sometimes with renewable energy projects is that tax revenue, and that will be around for decades and decades to come. Representative, you look like.
Yes, so let me jump in here, because you bring up a couple of things. I like to build on a previous thing I said, is that I'd be willing to come and talk to, or Zoom to anybody. And I mentioned the Conservatives for Clean Energy survey. Mm-hmm. And I think to the major companies that, the state looks to attract, the Google data centers and Facebook data centers and all that, and they have clear goals. I guess my challenge for local chambers of commerce is do a survey yourself to see what the businesses who are members, what are their goals? Are they in favor of clean energy or not? Because you can build a welcoming atmosphere for either small businesses or large businesses if you know where the temperature of your community is. Susan, you've done this for a living. I'm sure that you could help any of the chambers, kind of construct the right tool to do that on, figure out what it is. And if you've got 500 members and 400 of them are like, yeah, we'd love 100% renewable energy. All of a sudden, you've got something that you can build on. And I'm not saying you're going to get jobs the very next day, but that would be something certainly that when you get with your economic developers, you could leverage that positively, whether it's for a company like the one I saw at Solar Power International, which is up in Garner, or whether it's a local construction company, like my example of Horn Brothers. Maybe there's a Horn Brothers Construction who only builds fences right now, which has also been helped by the solar industry. I know a guy who does fences and he's made quite a bit of money doing it. He grew his company as, well, I don't know how many people it's got, but it's a whole lot more than he used to have. I mean, there are other opportunities, not just in the installation. You know, you look at fencing and like you mentioned, you know, when you have a construction project, people are going to eat, they're going to sleep, you know, buy gas, all that other stuff. So I think if you really are serious about it, get a temperature for your own chambers. And Susan, I'm throwing this one back at you to help them do that. You know, there's probably a stage, and it goes in the learning stage in the education phase, because people don't, this is just my opinion, got nothing to do with the legislature, but I'm a member of the local chamber. I'm not in the local chamber to hang a fancy plaque on my door and say, look at me, look at me. I'm there to have business opportunities to make my business better and to network with other people so I can grow my business, provide more opportunities to my customers, make more money. I mean, it's America. So it might be a place to start.
Thank you. That is great feedback. That's great feedback. And I would love to work on that, especially with the chamber leaders we have today and Monday. And I want to remind everyone to make sure to tune in on Monday, because there's going to be a chamber director featured on Monday that might be able to give some great information about the supply chain opportunities. Okay, I think we are ready to wrap up. And Representative, as you concluded your comments about the business opportunity, you are speaking today to the voice of business, to the voice of business growth. If you look at any chamber's mission statement, I can just about guarantee you that 100% of them are going to be revolving around supporting opportunities for business growth in their community. So I think we're right on the mark today with what we're talking about. I encourage you to continue to do your great work, Representative, and we're going to do our great work to support you as well. And thank you, everyone, for being with us today. You have my contact information on your screen right now. Please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you, everyone, for being here, and join us Monday as we continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.